Just wanted to check in and just do like an update sort of vlog. Haven't done a video in a long time, it feels like, but I want to start with the PIP process. I think I must have talked about it maybe a year or more so ago. So I'm currently in the tribunal stage, and thankfully I've got some help from the Citizens Advice Bureau, who, without them, I don't think I would be able to continue the PIP process, or I would do a pretty terrible job in knowing what to say and how to explain things that fits into all of their language and criteria, which if you don't know that, then there are just so many pitfalls in how things come across, how things are assessed. So I'm gonna, so again, another holding pattern until the actual tribunal, which will be sometime next year. And it's going to be a really difficult process for me to do. And originally I was going to have a friend come with me, but I think I may need to have like a stranger come with me, like an advocate or something, where I feel more comfortable unmasking and sort of not putting up a front. And they kind of need to see that as well, not like see the sort of job interview version of me where you're trying to be all, proper and you're kind of putting up some sort of mask on. I need them to see that, how stressful these things can make and the toll it takes, and how that affects me. And it's, maybe I can just move on to unmasking and sort of that whole process as well. It feels like it's a really slow process, and part of it's involuntary, where I'm finding it more and more stressful to hold up a mask of being okay or looking a certain way or not sort of stimming. And sometimes it's the case where I start off, like if I'm seeing some family, I'll start off masking, and then as my sort of energy and overwhelm increase, and my battery sort of depletes, and there's more like fogginess, and there's a natural kind of, usually it's me like rubbing my head or having my eyes closed more when I'm listening to somebody, or not being able to sort of look at them or stay fully engaged is kind of it's one of those things that's probably hard to notice when, like, by yourself. It's a really, like, if I was to watch myself 6 months ago and watch myself now, I may see a marked difference, but I haven't read any more of the autism books that I have. I think it'll be really useful to get back to that, especially the book that's called Unmasked, that talks about this stuff. And what I might do is save that for when I go to the library, perhaps. That could be a focus. And that's going to be my routine, really, like once or twice a week to go into town and go into the city and go to the library and do some reading. And the plan was to do some writing, but that's been a sort of difficulty that I've been trying to approach and just trying to be kind as well. So I've kind of put myself in a position to write, whether bringing my laptop or a notepad and pen, and accepting, if after a few sentences I can't do any more. It's still very painful and difficult, but it feels like at least I'm kind of being open to it and not sort of drawing a hard line that's okay, I can't do that. I've been unwell for a few weeks with shingles, so I'm still sort of dealing with the after effects of that, and I find it really tough too when you're kind of taken out of a routine, or something that you try and do regularly, you haven't done in a while. It really makes it difficult to get back into that. Like I just met a friend in a library on Friday, and it just took so much strength to get the bus and to be used to being around people, and the whole process was just I had to really sort of be with myself every step of the way and encourage myself to do that, and then go into town where it's busy and lots of people, and and I'm glad I've kind of able to do that, although I still feel very, I don't know if vulnerable is the right word, but yeah, I know change is one of those really difficult sort of things with autism, and having routine taken away or changed up, that's been really difficult. It's an update on like long COVID stuff. Things are very much, it's hard to know, some days it's getting worse, or some days I'm guessing it's always going to be in fluctuation, but I think overall it's as it was, with the brain fog and the like chronic fatigue. And I mentioned where I'm living now. I actually don't know if I mentioned that. I may have done, but where I'm sort of living now, there's no sort of green space and there's no access for me to really walk. I'll have to like get in the car and drive somewhere. So, and for me, driving can be a bit of a struggle. Like I minimize driving as much as I can, but yeah, like I invested in a walking pad, so I kind of do some gentle walking on there if I'm like going to be at home for the day, and I kind of watch something while I'm doing that. So yeah, I'm kind of grateful to have that, just some sort of mobility while I'm at home. So I've noticed if I'm not doing a lot of movement, then like I've got lots of aches and pains in my body, and like rigidity as well, like my muscles. So I find if I'm not doing, or if I'm sat for a number of days without much exercise, then it feels a whole lot worse. So I'm really grateful that I've got that as well. I'm really noticing that as I'm talking, my mind is just disconnecting from what I'm saying. It's and I know I've mentioned this before, trying to vlog, that is probably why I've kind of had a break from it, but I'm now thinking about just not sort of automatically saying things, but just trying to think, okay, what do I want to talk about, and really trying to connect. I think generally speaking, it's becoming a little bit more difficult to sort of construct my days, I find. I used to have like more of a routine and a plan, like a written, I think it's a CBT thing, where you write for the day and week like pleasurable activities, and you write necessary activities, and you sort of have activities for your morning and afternoon and evening. But I find things for me are so It's a similar thing. I can't think of the word. Changeable. It's not really the word I was thinking of, but maybe that would do. Like mood-wise, and it's just almost too overwhelming to commit to activities in a day. It's a lot easier for me to have something not written down and roughly in my mind. What I've done is I have got like a list of activities that if I, which I didn't reference probably as much as I should, but it's almost like reminds me of what's available. So I've got things like, writing, I've got ASMR, I've got poker, and things like that. So just so I think, okay, I'm not sure what to do. What can I look in this list? I think, okay, I can listen to a podcast, or I can listen to some music. And I've said this before as well, but it's getting really difficult to sort of self-assess. Some part of my mind that just wants to know, maybe to avert sort of danger, or to know if I'm getting a lot worse, that do I need more support or more help. I find that's really difficult to engage in. And talking about like the social side of things, I've been struggling a lot more with that. And I think my sort of sensory, it's funny, I'm just clueless on the language sometimes of how to explain, and also like sort of autistic language or keywords that people use to describe things, almost like a shortcut. But yeah, I'm finding the sensory overwhelm and like talking to people quite a lot. And maybe, I'm sure part of that is masking while I'm in company. That drains me a lot quicker than if I wasn't. But yeah, there's just some awareness in that. And I'm noticing there's some feelings coming up about social stuff and connecting with people that I just can't put into words. It's almost like I can feel it there of what I want to say, but there's no words that come with it. But yeah, maybe it's just a common thing where I kind of want connection, but I also struggle with connection or maintaining connections as well. So that's been tricky, where and I think part of it is just that maybe it's frustrating that I need so much recovery time. If I have a conversation with somebody or see somebody, that kind of takes up a lot of energy, no matter like if the energy is sort of intense for me, or if it's an energy that's not as intense. I'm finding that it's really been difficult to recover. I think a friend of mine recently has just got back in touch to see if they wanted to meet up, and they had mentioned, you've got lots of stuff planned, so it may not be possible to meet in a certain week. And I noticed there was a bit of, I don't know if it was jealousy, because it wasn't really jealousy, because I didn't really want to have full-on sort of social commitments every day, but maybe the idea of being able to do that, perhaps that was it. And it wasn't probably jealousy in that way, but just, oh God, it would be nice to kind of have the stamina, or to not be so depleted afterwards. So there's a noticeable sort of decrease in being able to reach out to people, and I've sort of receded from a lot of like sort of fringe connections with friends and family. Usually after a certain amount of time I would sort of send a message and say, hey, would you like to meet? And these sort of connections I wouldn't really see them often. But now, like, I'm struggling to even do that. Like, a long time's gone by and I'm aware of certain people I haven't seen. I'm not able to, not that I don't want to see them, but just to initiate that message. Almost feels a bit unsafe. Like, as soon as I do that and make an arrangement, I'm like, why did I make an arrangement? I don't have the energy to, am I going to be really awkward? And I'm not going to really be able to engage that much. I think I found that recently when I had a sort of a social meetup, and I in the middle of it I was just realizing that, God, I'm so drained and I've got like nothing to offer, and I'm just sort of hanging on. And it didn't feel too nice to kind of, because I really wanted to sort of, and what usually happens in that, a lot of my social connections now is me sort of listening and just sort of talking about what they've talked about, and I rarely sort of share much about myself. Not that I hold it back, but I know part of that is people have lots to say, and they may not necessarily say, what's going on with you, like how are you keeping, or having follow-up questions if I say not like a short answer, but I guess I missed that from counselling, because as hard as I found counselling when I used to do it, it was, of course, all of it's about you. So there are also lots of little gentle questions to kind of keep you going and keep you sort of sharing about yourself, where for me, I'd probably sort of say a few things and then not say anything afterwards, and there'd be no prompts to kind of encourage me to say more. Really, it would just be kind of going back into listening mode and asking them questions about certain things. And so I thought about like recording a vlog for a while, and I think what's been happening creativity wise there's been lots of sparks of wanting to be creative, and then when I've tried to do it, it just doesn't, I don't get to the stage of actually like pressing record or opening my sort of novel and trying to write, and that's okay. I guess that's part of sort of meeting myself where I am. But yeah, just even talking about it now, that feels like the idea of sort of using library time to read the more sort of academic sort of books, non-fiction books. Like I've got a few. That feels like a plan going forward, because I feel like I need a good reason to go to the library, not just to read sort of fiction books, like to do something else as well. So maybe that's a nice idea. Because I've got quite a few of those type of books that'd be really helpful for me to read, and I'm sure I'll get something out of it. Like I think I've got a couple on autism, and I've got one called Quiet, which I think is about people who are introverted. And I've got like a few, I'm sure I've got a few others as well, so maybe that could be, for a time being, just that may be something that might sort of structure my week a bit. And in terms of my podcast, at some point I'll try to record potentially, and like even doing this, it's like this is kind of testing the waters, I guess, as well, and seeing is this, like right now I feel like I'm in a dizzy spin, and I've already forgotten what I've talked about and if I've made any sense, and like even that process makes me feel so vulnerable. Like, do I want to kind of put myself through this? But maybe it's a healthy thing, because I don't really do a lot of talking I don't really have loads of social interaction, so maybe is it getting darker now on the screen? It is getting dark outside. Yeah, there's something about engaging verbally that can sort of, I'm sure it engages different pathways, just as writing something down engages a different sort of modality of expression and brain chemistry. So maybe in regards to that, it's a little bit of practice to sort of socially engage, and an outlet to talk about myself a bit, I guess, where I don't really have as much of that with my sort of interactions. And that could be something I work on as well, where you kind of want to enjoy a conversation and in a sort of natural way be able to share and sort of share and package and express like how things are, or whatever you want to share. It's just almost the sort of art of a conversation and enjoying a conversation versus nervously waiting for a small gap and then trying to kind of get your elbows in and say, okay, I'm going to say my piece for 5 minutes. And you kind of want everything to be sort of gentle and kind of stay within yourself a little bit, not sort of do things for sort of means to an end. So I think if anything else I want to talk about. Maybe just a final thing perhaps talk about is my sort of nutrition. I've always struggled with sort of like binge eating and all sort of comfort eating, and relied on sort of unhealthy foods when I'm not feeling good. I think for the first time in years, or maybe even more than that, like where like I've been on I think for the last couple of weeks or 2-3 weeks, I've been eating fairly well almost the entire time. I had one day where I just got Domino's and had too much. But it was great because, well, not great I had that, but great I kind of got a hit of what I needed. Like I enjoyed the food and I had something I wanted to have, but I didn't sort of like I immediately got back to or realigned with eating well again. So like I had porridge the next day, and I had like a healthy sort of sandwich, and I had some recipes, and I know a big part of that was my ability to cook, which is so up and down. So I can go like a month without being able to cook anything, and relying on like unhealthy foods or frozen foods where it's not necessarily always the healthiest. So I've been really trying to pace myself and cook when I can, so that's been helpful. Is there anything else I want to... I think hopefully if I do decide to like record a bit more, even if it's just for my own well-being, to be able to kind of talk and engage in some form versus having like really like days of not using my voice or speaking to anyone for a large number of days. So maybe I can just see how this goes.